Comics with Friends. This is our Nailbiter episode, and this is going to be a two-parter. Isn't that exciting? This is the first part. So if you like this and enjoy this episode, look forward to part 2 coming out. And also give us a like, give us a subscribe, a comment, hit the bell notification, all the standard YouTube things. So please continue listening and enjoy the episode. Thank you. Bye. Hello, creepers and creepies. This is Comics with Friends, the bi-weekly podcast where two best buds get together, read a comic, say what we like, what we don't like, maybe tell a couple jokes. I'm joined by my best bud and co-host, Ethan. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing very good.
All right, it's good to be back. We are covering Nailbiter. Volume 1, and let me tell you, this was awesome. This is written by Joshua Williamson. Mm-hmm. The artist is Mike Henderson, and colorist is Adam Guzowski. I'm hoping I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, my pronunciation is probably awful.
Yeah.
This is an Image comic book, and that's the main reason why I wanted to do the opening for this and everything like that. Also, we're doing this in the spirit of the holiday, Halloween, October, all that stuff. This is not a typical book, I guess you could say, that we would cover. It's not like a superhero or anything like that. This is more slasher, like murder mystery kind of deal thing.
And with a little tinge of maybe some supernatural.
Yes.
Kind of, we are as much in the dark as everyone else because I have chosen not to read any further until we decide to cover the next part of Nailbiter.
Which, after reading this, I'm all for.
Yeah, it's been painful because Nicole, she's actually the one that recommended this to us for October. Yeah, she is a huge indie fan, and just like me, she's a big horror fan when it comes to comics. I'm more into the horror movie aspect. She's more into the horror comics aspect. And this was definitely one that she was like, yeah, you should do this. She was like, I think you'll like it. She's had that book since 2014. I've never read it.
Damn.
Or not 2014, 2016, my bad. She actually picked it up on a whim because in town we had a Hastings that was going out of business. And they were running this huge sale where everything was like 80% off. And she found that. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to pick this up. It looks cool.
I mean, it says on the cover, the Murder Edition.
Yeah, there's 3 volumes.
Yeah, volume 1. It's a hardcover with sick art.
Yeah, all the artwork is great. At the end, I don't know if you looked in the back of the book, but all the covers are in there, all the variants.
Yeah.
And all the covers are great, too.
I mean, I guess technically it's not really artwork, but like the intermission between parts,
where they give the quotes from the chapter. It's
just black with like a little bit of blood and everything like that. Mm-hmm. I loved it. Every time I got to that, it just felt like a horror film or something where it just like goes black and you're like, oh fuck, what happens next?
It feels a lot like, now I don't know if you watched the show. We're kind of going off on a tad bit of a tangent, but I think this is okay. It reminds me a lot of the first season of True Detective. We gotta restart the recording now.
No, that was to tell me to wake up.
Yeah, getting off night shift. That also reminded me I need to mute my phone as well. So actually, thank you very much. Put that on Do Not Disturb. But yeah, no, it reminded me very much of the first season of True Detective. So I don't know if you've ever watched that. It has I think Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey in it.
I know of it. I've never seen it.
It's set in, I believe, the 90s, either late 80s, early 90s, or just the 90s. Mm-hmm. And it's about the two of them in, I think, Louisiana. It's like New Orleans type, Southern cop type deal. And it's an occult killing where they're trying to figure out this cult that's killing people and stuff like that. And it's a serial killer thing. It's a long story. That's not what this episode's about, but it gave off that feeling.
I mean, I've never seen it, but this is another prime example of why I love, I guess I'll say Image, but like indie books in general. No hate to like DC or Marvel or anything, but for the most part, every comic relatively feels pretty similar as far as mainline issues and stuff like that. Like they have their offshoots where it's a little more artistic and things like that. But for the most part, they feel pretty similar to each other. But this right here, the way that they use even just the paneling and everything, like how do I want, they just use interesting ways to show the story in the panels and everything like that you don't necessarily see, or at least obviously I don't read a whole lot. This is the most that we've done, like I've done reading is doing this podcast, but from what I've seen, you don't see it that often where they use interesting things to like just, I don't know, express the story. Yeah. And this was so cool. I fucking loved this.
It's very, it feels very original. Yeah. It's I know that's kind of weird to say about a murder mystery where it's like it's been done numerous times before, but it just feels fresh. It feels unique, especially in like my repertoire, I guess, of reading material, because I'm constantly reading superhero comics. Yeah. If I'm not reading superhero comics, I'm reading some type of sci-fi or fantasy. So it felt very refreshing. It felt very good. It actually makes me want a TV adaptation of it, but I feel like they'd fuck it up somehow.
Oh, yeah. The only one I'd trust with it, even though HBO, as of late, has kind of had a rocky track record, but they're kind of coming back. Yeah. It's definitely got that, like, HBO limited series feeling to it.
Where they could have, like, maybe 2 seasons at most, and it'd be good, or 1 season.
Yeah. It was just really fucking good. Yeah. This is my first time ever reading anything horror before. I've never read horror books, comics. It's not... It's not usually my forte. Yeah. I'm not a huge horror fan, even though if you looked at me, you'd be like, man, he must love horror. Yeah. I like horror games. That's the most. But let's go ahead and get into this lovely, lovely story. Yeah. And we start off strong.
Yeah. I will say before we get into it, you know, obviously we're both adults. Mm-hmm. I would hope a lot of the people that are watching us are adults as well, but there is a slight content warning here. This does deal with some very heavy themes right off the bat. Of course, this deals with the theme of murder, death, killing people. So it is not, it's not for the faint of heart, and they don't pull punches in this story. I will say that.
Yes. Also, I guess in line with that, just so we cover all bases, there will be, possible talks of suicide and things like that, because that is almost right in the beginning as well. Yeah, it is. So yeah, it's a horror book. They're going to be dealing with some very sensitive things,
and they do not market this to children. No, this is an adult graphic novel.
So with that warning being said, tread further at your own risk. Yeah. But yes, we start super strong, and right out the gate, just as an example of what I meant by using the paneling, the breaks between the panels, they have thump thump, and already giving that, rather than it being like something in the scene that is giving that heartbeat sound, it's to make you think of like this, it's in the overall background and things like that, like. It's just cool off the bat. But we start off with like SWAT team at this house and everything like that in Riverside, California. And while he's not mentioned, there's like the lead detective. He's mentioned later in the story. He's basically like, we need the guy inside alive. His name's Warren.
The guy we open up with, his name is Elliot Carroll. Yeah, he is important.
Yes, he is one of, I wouldn't say like a crux, but he's a big factor.
He's a driving force. Yes, for the main character.
Yeah, but yeah, they raid this house, and again, right off the bat, it's this double splash of this serial killer called the Nailbiter, which is essentially why the book is named Nailbiter, because he's a prominent figure in this story.
And, this might be tad bit spoilers, maybe not a little bit. My favorite character in this story so far is this character, the Nailbiter, Edward Warren.
I tell you what, I didn't expect. I guess it is a little. I didn't expect him to end up being a likable character. Mm-hmm. I mean, he still kind of disgusts me. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, he's still a serial killer, so like he's obviously a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like you like to watch him because he's just so interesting.
Yeah.
Like Joshua Williamson. Now, I love Joshua Williamson because he does write superhero comics as well now. He works for DC. Mm-hmm. And he's about to start working on Superman, which I'm very excited about. Starts in October, actually. I am so enthralled with the way that he writes people. Like, he just understands people.
Yeah.
He understands how to write a person, like their personality. And he really gets that serial killers are kind of these weird anomalies in society, obviously because they fucking kill people.
Yeah.
But they even mention in the book that serial killers are extremely eccentric, yet in public, they're very average.
Yeah.
They're very emotionless and antisocial, yet they're very charismatic people.
And that's one thing that I think they nail with the writing is like you said, you're interested in watching him, and he's likable, not in the like, oh, he's a good guy. Mm-hmm. He's got this air about him where it just kind of like, it's that creepy, charismatic, like, it's just like, damn, like if he was real, I'd be dead.
That's what I told.
Fucking dead.
That is what I told Nicole when I finished the book. I was like, damn, Edward Warren would fucking chew my fucking fingernails off.
Yeah. Well, and to get in that's his whole shtick. They call him the Nailbiter because he would target people that chewed their fingernails.
Yep. So I'm already on the list.
Yeah, me too. And he would target them, and he would bite off their fingertips and then kill them. So he wouldn't eat them. He's not a cannibal.
Yeah, and he mentions that later in the story.
But yeah, it's just, and that's one thing. I know we're kind of like being vague and we're not really getting into it right now, but I feel like there's a little bit of just like kind of context and things before we get into it. Because this is also a pretty visual book too. Yeah. There is a lot of exposition, but I think they mix well the exposition and visual storytelling.
Like I feel like for the video, it's gonna be really difficult to put stuff in because of course it's
graphic.
It's graphic, so I don't know how it's gonna do. Mm-hmm. Like if it's gonna be able to be put up, but I feel like to get the full experience, you do need to read it, like to actually see what's going on.
And yeah, so one thing I do like about this book, because they mention several different serial killers. They're all made up, whether they're based on real people or not, I do not know. Yeah, but they don't use any real.
Yeah, we don't get like Jeffrey Dahmer or any of those people.
But one thing that's really interesting about this book is with each serial killer, they each have a specific quirk about them that makes them. I have it in my notes where it's like. Which I should probably
it's their modus operandi.
But they're like they're almost kind of silly sometimes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But then it makes it even more interesting because of how silly it is, and how fucked it is at the same time.
It's even makes it creepier, in my opinion, for some of them.
It's really an interesting take on it because, like I said, it's so silly. Whatever they're like how they operate, but it's like, oh my god, like. Mm-hmm. That's fucking creepy as hell too. It's this weird balance that they did fantastically in this book. But it's definitely really interesting read. I mean, to keep going, because we're
so Agent Elliot, he gets a SWAT force in. They go in and arrest Edward Warren.
Yep,
and the son of a bitch gets put in jail for a few years, as far as we know. And kind of like what you were talking about with that really beautiful paneling composition, it's all punctuated by the thump. Mm-hmm. And it's cool because when you're reading it, it makes it look like it's like Elliot's heartbeat. Like he's nervous. It's that movie, like dun 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 dun, and the scenes are going, and you're just seeing it step by step what they're doing.
Yeah.
And as we get past the arrest, the thumps are going still, and they're continuous, and we see the title card, Nailbiter, Chapter 1, There Will Be Blood, and you are introduced to Agent Finch,
yep.
who is the main character of the story, and we find out that the thumps are his heartbeat as he is extremely scared and nervous to put a bullet in his head.
Yeah.
He is about to commit suicide.
Also, really cool thing that they did with those thumps, again, bringing up how they do this visual storytelling and stuff, is it looks like an EKG.
Yeah, the
machine.
heartbeat monitor.
Yeah, the heartbeat monitor. But yeah, it starts off pretty dark, and those heartbeats are him, like you said, nervous to basically kill himself.
Yeah, and he's only barely stopped.
Yeah, the only reason, and this is 3 years later.
Yeah,
it's a pretty decent sized time jump.
Yeah,
but 3 years later, and we're met with this, and for a second you kind of are like, okay, is this just a side character?
Yeah,
like you don't know if he's the main character or not. But the only thing that stopped him was he gets a phone call from Agent Elliot Carroll.
Yeah,
and we don't know a whole lot about Finch other than he at this moment is kind of in a world of shit, but we don't know why.
Yeah. He's obviously at a low point in his life to want to end it.
Yeah, pretty much. And the only thing that keeps him going is the fact that Carol puts this worm in his ear, and he goes, I figured out the connection between the Buckaroo Butchers, which is a nickname given to a 16 serial killers that all came from the same town in...
They're called Buckaroo. It's Buckaroo, Oregon?
Yes.
Yeah, because
it's close. It's like... They talk about Portland.
Yeah, it's close to Portland. Yeah.
But he's like, I have discovered the connection between all 16 that have come out of Buckaroo, Oregon, and he won't tell Finch exactly what it is. He's like, you have to come see it to believe it.
And you won't believe it.
So you need to be here by tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Finch is like at first doing the typical like, nah,
this ain't my deal.
This ain't my shit. I don't want to get involved. Mm-hmm. And he puts that worm in his ear of like, don't you just want to know? Mm-hmm. And he's like, fine, I'll fly out tomorrow morning. Like, I'll be there tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
And Finch gets there. And let me tell you, the atmosphere of Buckaroo, Oregon.
Yeah.
If you drove in there, you wouldn't want to stay a single night in this place.
I would not want to visit it. And that's kind of something that we get to learn about Buckaroo very quickly, is that because of the Nailbiter arrest, which was so prolific in the media, you find out that it wasn't just Carol who kind of made some connections. Like, obviously Carol knows something that everyone else doesn't, but the news media kind of made the connection of like, well, all these serial killers were from the same place. And you find out that Buckaroo at some point was a hotbed of, it was a media circus. Like, there was just so many news outlets there trying to get interviews, trying to figure out who knew these killers, who, how everything was connected, all that kind of deal. And you get the sense that the townspeople were kind of left bitter and,
kind of traumatized
by it, because they're just normal people. Mm-hmm. They just want to be left alone, and they don't understand why all of this keeps happening.
And that's one thing I love about this book, in volume 1 at least, is this theme of just the question why.
Yeah.
Why did these people do these things? And why didn't I notice this when we were younger? Or why my family member? Why that? And I love that theme that just carries through this book, of that question of just why, which I think a lot of people not necessarily can relate to, but can understand, because, when you hear awful things in the news and like the family member is interviewed and it's like, I don't understand, they're always kind or whatever, like why they would do this, I don't know. And it's that question of why.
Yeah.
And I love it. And also with that opening, this whole just beginning part when Finch gets into town, I can literally feel the tension.
Yeah.
Of like just what the fuck is gonna happen.
You almost get that feeling like you're being watched.
Yes.
Or that the characters are being watched around every corner.
100%. But to continue on, Finch he shows up, and because it's Oregon, and
raining.
It is raining.
It's always raining.
It is always raining, and he's supposed to meet Carol, but he's a no-show right now.
Yeah.
And kind of in Finch's mind, he's like, oh, he's got to be like dead or some shit like that. Like, I don't, and he's biting his nail. He's worried about it. And then this random goth chick teenager,
Alice
shows up, and is basically like, hey, don't bite your nails. People aren't going to like that around here. And he's like, oh, sorry, nervous habit. And I'd be like, yeah, that's me too. Yeah. I do that shit all the time.
And I find that to be super interesting, where it's like, because of the things that happened in the town's past, even though the town wasn't even directly involved in the serial killings, because all these serial killers grew up there, but then moved away and then committed their crimes. It's kind of like what you said, the traumatization of what happened. There are these kind of odd taboos that would not be taboos anywhere else but here, and you get the feeling that like there's something just not right here.
Yeah, something as mundane as just biting your fingernail.
Yeah,
is all because the guy's nickname and his MO was
nail biting. Yeah,
which we could get into a whole spiel of like social.
It's just super interesting. I love the way that it's just portrayed here.
We also do get a little bit of like just a very quick insight into Finch's kind of past of why he's kind of the way he is right now. It's very quick. While he's sitting there kind of worried, waiting on Carol before Alice shows up, it kind of shows that he maybe went too far with a inmate, because you find out later he's like army investigation.
He's basically like
an interrogator.
Yeah, he's an FBI agent.
Yeah, and he might have gone too far with an inmate. We don't know how far until later in the story. But then Alice shows up, and she kind of gives him like kind of the rundown a little bit of town of like, hey, like, don't chew your nails. People aren't too happy about outsiders and stuff like that. And it's kind of random, at least when you're first reading it, but then just like a random bee comes out of nowhere
and stings
him, and he's like, oh, fuck. And she's like, it's probably one of the bees from the bee farms that we have, because apparently Buckaroo, Oregon was known for its honey production or something like that. I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's factories or like farm to factory.
It's like farm. Yeah, it's like farmsteads.
I don't know the bee industry. It's not really my forte.
Yeah.
Because I fucking hate bees.
I hate wasps. I don't care about bees.
Like what happens later to that one dude.
That's your fear?
That's like a nightmare of mine. Fuck that. But Alice is like kind of giving them the rundown of everything, and they're standing there talking, and Finch looks over, and corporate America strikes again.
Yeah.
It's not really corporate America, but capitalism strikes again.
Yeah.
And you see this massive like store called the Murder Store, and it's capitalizing on the whole serial killer novelty shop and everything.
It has like memorabilia replicas of all the Buckaroo or the Buckaroo butchers.
This is essentially a really fucked up Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, it really is.
That's essentially what it is. And Finch, he as our protagonist, he goes in and he's like looking around and stuff, and it's creepy as hell. And then an even more creepier fucking shop owner shows up.
Yeah.
And he's just like, howdy, which instantly for the rest of the book, even though they're in Oregon, I just think this man is talking in a Southern accent the entire time.
Well, everyone kind of feels like they're talking in a Southern accent.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce his first name.
Raleigh.
Is it Raleigh?
That's how I was pronouncing
Raleigh Woods.
Yeah.
That could be completely wrong. I'm not sure. I just called him Mr. Woods in my head.
Yeah.
Because I was not going to try and pronounce that continuously.
Mr. Wood.
But
he's got the wood.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But he is the shop owner, and he's very much, he is trying to use, or when Finch tells him, like, hey, don't you think this is a little insensitive to the victim, like the victims' families, all that kind of stuff. And Woods basically tells him, like, well, I'm trying to breathe life into Buckaroo, and the people of this town have suffered because of these killers. And in fact, I have more of a right than anyone to, have this shop because my grandfather was, I believe he was called the Book Burner.
Yeah, he's the Book Burner.
He was the first Buckaroo butcher.
Yeah, I don't think he
is
the first.
Yeah,
I thought he said one of the first.
He might have said that, but either way,
he's
one of the originals.
Yeah, one of the OGs.
Yeah, one of the OGs. And he essentially says that his grandfather was picked on in school because he didn't know how to read or write. Mm-hmm. And when he got older, he, would set libraries on fire, schools, that kind of stuff. And it ended in the deaths of like 5 people.
Yeah.
5 or to 7 people. I forget the exact number. But that is where he got the name, Book Burner. Or as I like to call him, fucking Scarecrow, because that's what he looks like. He's got like a bag on his head.
He has a mask, and
it looks cool.
It looks cool, but like it's literally like from Batman Begins, almost like the mask from that.
Yeah.
Cool design and stuff, but
it comes up later.
Yeah, it does. That is true. But yeah, the dude's like, that's my grandfather. Like I have a right to do this. And he also, I think, explains at this moment that, like, throw a stone, almost anyone in this town is connected to one of the serial killers, basically.
Yeah. And that's kind of a concept that comes up later, where even Finch is like, every new person I meet knows someone that was a killer.
Mr. Wood.
Yeah.
I don't feel like dancing with his first name because I'm probably gonna fuck it up.
Yeah.
Raleigh. Or whatever. He also states that the reason why he's doing this is because he wants to hold the first ever Killer Con in Buckaroo, and he makes it out to be like a charity,
like a community,
like charity for the community to revitalize it because he wants to bring in income, but in actuality, he just wants to line his own pockets.
Well, yeah, of course. That's
really all it is.
That's really all it is.
But he does the typical, I'm justifying my actions even though my store is completely fucked up.
Yeah.
But as Finch and Mr. Wood is finishing up their conversation, Alice is getting essentially harassed outside by these 2 high school, very typical jock bully archetypes. I think, what are their names? I think one is
Hank and Ronnie.
Yep. Very jock bully names. And they start harassing her, and like,
they're being they're adults, by the way.
They're 18.
They're both 18.
Which is hilarious in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, Alice fights back, knees Hank in the groin, and then he's about to Ronnie's about to fucking punch her, and she scratches his face, and then Finch steps in and is like, I have 2 rules. No women. And he's like, how old are you? And they're like, 21. He's like, I can tell a liar.
Yeah.
How old are you actually? 18. And he's like, and no kids. And then just fucking decks Hank right in the fucking
absolutely
face.
Lays him out. Yeah. And it's cool. And that's also a big theme with Finch, is that he can tell when people are lying.
Yeah.
Now, I interpret it as he's just really good at his job.
He's really good at reading like body language.
But it almost, I remember when I first saw it, I almost thought, like, are they going to go supernatural with this, where he's got like a psychic ability? But I don't think that's the case. I think he's just a normal person.
I don't think it's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe somehow they brought that into play in a later volume, because there's some things that quote unquote bad guys do in this that seem supernatural.
Yeah.
So it's like I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't also apply to the good guys or like the normal people and stuff like that. But I do love that scene where he asked them their age, because I have in my notes, I was like, Finch said, if you're old enough to be considered legal, then you're old enough to catch these hands, which I think is
that's perfect. Yeah.
The most accurate statement.
I agree. It's a very good scene. You know, they're little shits.
And that's one thing that I do like about this book too, is it deals with some super dark themes, but there is moments of levity in there.
Yeah, it's not like you're reading a Robert Kirkman.
You're not reading Berserk.
Yeah, you're not reading Berserk.
After the Eclipse.
Walking Dead.
Yeah.
You're not reading one of those.
It has some levity, but it also has some seriously dark moments too.
Yeah.
But as Finch is about to basically end these guys' careers as anything, my favorite character shows up. It's like the town sheriff. I forget her first name.
I know it's Crane is her last name. Yeah. Her first name is, I'll tell you here in just a second, Shannon.
Yep. I love her character.
Yeah.
I was telling you before we started recording that I loved her character because she is super badass, but she's also like, she brings some of the humor in this, but she's also like the most down-to-earth, level-headed in the entirety of this fucking story.
Yeah. I'll say this. I think I love all three of the main characters because, you know, I'm going to kind of not reveal who the third main character is, but Finch and Crane, Shannon Crane, or there's technically four main characters.
Yeah.
Because Alice is technically one of those main characters. I love all four of them. I don't think any of them are bad. I think Abigail might be the weakest in my opinion, or not Abigail. Alice might be the weakest in my opinion, but we also don't know what's going on with her. I'll say that.
Later,
we get hints, but we don't know for sure.
When we get to, I think, the chapter or the part you're also thinking about, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Because that moment was great.
It kind of gave me goosebumps.
I literally said out loud, I was like, oh my God, the fucking twist. That's what... Anyway.
Yeah. But I think all four of them are really compelling characters.
Yeah. Alice took a minute to grow onto me until that moment.
Yeah.
We're talking about.
I agree.
And when we get there, we'll talk about it. But at first I was like, okay, she's whatever. Then we got...
But the other three are phenomenal.
I love Crane. Like, Finch is cool.
And then the third one...
I like his archetype. And then the third one...
Yeah. You know I'm going to like We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. But Finch is cool. He's got a temper, which also gets kind of established too in these early pages.
And he's very upfront with it too.
Yeah, but that's why I like Officer Crane.
They kind of balance each other.
Yeah, because she's like super level-headed. She's just like, dude, I'm just trying to do my... It's like Isaac Clarke from Dead Space, where he's like, I'm just trying to do my job.
I just want to get the fuck out of here.
I just am so tired of this bullshit. Yeah. I'm just a fucking engineer, man.
No, I like their dynamic. It feels very buddy cop in a sense.
A little bit, yeah.
And they balance each other out. Like you said, she's very level-headed, and she doesn't like to break the rules too often. But Finch kind of gives her that like push of like, hey, if you want to get something done, we need to do it.
Yeah. Finch is definitely like the rule bender.
Yeah. He doesn't believe in breaking the rules, but he does bend them to his needs.
Yeah, he thinks they're a little more flexible.
Yeah.
But they introduce each other. At first, you think, oh, there's going to be like a misunderstanding and he's going to get like arrested or something.
Yeah.
They squash that. Alice explains the situation.
Yeah.
And Crane's like, you two are fucking going to jail
for
the night.
And you can also tell from their conversation that they have that you can tell that Officer Crane and Alice have
some kind of history
together. Yeah.
And they introduce each other, Finch and Crane, and Finch gets right to business. He's like, do you know who Elliot Carroll is? And she's like, yeah, like I know of him. And mind confuddle for a second. Crane is like, yeah, about that, and
Yeah.
takes Finch.
Because she does know him.
She does
because
know
they would get
him.
coffee.
They
together.
would talk like
once a week, something like that.
At the diner over coffee, and she's basically like, yeah, about Carol, and takes Finch to his motel room where the place is trashed.
Yeah, but it's covered in like it's like the newspaper with the string going to it, and it's like all connected shit.
It's the fucking meme picture
from
Always Sunny.
Of Charlie.
Where he's like, yeah. But it's trash. Like there was some kind of scuffle and fight happened, or someone was looking for something or whatever. And she's like, basically like, I don't know where he is. He didn't show up for coffee today, and I was worried. And I was on the way to his motel room, and that's when I ran into you.
Essentially, she had just found that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they kind of have a little bit of exchange and kind of agree to like team up a little bit
to figure out where Elliot is.
And Finch makes it very clear. He's like, I don't give a fuck about what's happening in this town.
He doesn't even care about the whole Buckaroo or Buckaroo. I keep doing it. Yeah. Buckaroo butchers.
The Butcharoos.
Yeah.
I mean,
it still works.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just here to find Carol.
Yeah.
Like I don't give a fuck why things are happening in here and everything like that. I'm just looking for Carol. And Crane is basically like, well, since we don't really have any leads other than they figured out that he was also seeing the third main character or fourth or whatever. And they go to this
rural.
There you go.
Rural house.
Rural house. In the middle of nowhere. And they're talking super vague on their way out there. And she's like, yeah, I have an officer
always
stationed outside that house and watching. And you get a distinct feeling of like, oh, fuck. Who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And they pull up, and you get a very Hannibal.
It feels like Hannibal.
Very Hannibal moment.
Yeah.
Where you see like someone's cooking, and they knock on the door, and guess who fucking opens up?
The Nailbiter.
Yep,
Edward Warren, covered in blood with a hatchet in his hand or whatever that is.
And he's like, I just, was cooking a roast. What can I do you for?
Yeah.
And I say Hannibal because I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show.
I haven't watched it, but I've seen clips from it.
So one thing they do in that show that really adds to like the Hannibal character and the tension is he's a very good cook.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of cooking scenes. And because you know who Hannibal becomes is, you're constantly questioning who is that a person he's eating?
Or is that just actual food?
But they do that, but then they instantly squash that like he's like, I'm not a fucking cannibal. Yeah. I don't know where that fucking started from. But
and I think he even makes the distinction of like people, because I chewed on people's nails. I didn't eat their fingers.
Yeah.
Like that was just the news outlet did that.
Well, to be fair, he chewed them down to the bone. Yeah. Which is fucking weird.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird regardless because he's a killer.
Yeah, but like, he plays it off like, oh, I just chewed their nails. Yeah, down to the fucking bone.
Yeah.
Like, you basically ate their fingertips. What do you mean?
But that is the end of chapter 1, and such good setup.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so good. As soon as I saw that panel, I went, oh, I'm in.
I saw that panel, and I was like, who the fuck let him out?
Yeah. And we immediately find out in chapter 2 that essentially he was acquitted. Mm-hmm. That the jury found him not guilty, and it was a lame jury. Man, you open up drinks? Am I on set?
I'm just keeping it real with the audience.
Yeah. Drinking that monster. But yeah, no, we find out that
monster in me.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
So we find out that essentially it was a lame jury. They found him not guilty. They don't go into too much detail about that. At least not yet.
Yeah.
We just know that he was found not guilty and was allowed to walk free.
Yeah, and I have in my notes, I'm like, who the fuck like found him not guilty? Like, what? The police found him gnawing on fingers.
Yeah. And that's a point that gets brought up where it was like he was caught in the act.
Yeah.
People saw him do it. Footage is out there of him doing it.
I think someone either got...
It's hard because I have theories.
I do too with some of the stuff that's happened in this book. Because I think there's like... I mean, we can get into it more later, but just to give you a broad stroke right now, I think there's like some kind of secret thing in the background that's pulling strings.
100%.
That's what I think.
We'll get into it when we finish covering this book, if we have time. But I have theories. I have a lot of
which I will say right now, because we didn't really say it in the beginning. This is a thick book.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
This took me close to like an hour.
I think it took me
15 minutes.
I think it took me about an hour and a half. Yeah, because I'm a slower reader.
Yeah,
and I take a lot of the art in after reading it. So
yeah, this is a thick boy, but we love that around here.
Yeah,
thick boy, fall or something. I don't know. I don't know what the sayings are. I'm not cool.
So yeah, he's acquitted.
Yep.
People are pissed about it, and that's kind of where the whole, I'm not a cannibal. You know, that shit's made up. This is actually a cow. And he even is like, if you want proof, I'll show you. And he takes him to a barn and he's like, I butcher them myself in my own unique way. And it shows a fucked up panel of him
just brutalizing this cow.
Brutalizing it. Still alive.
And the thing about this character that like pisses me off, but also like makes his character so interesting is he knows. He is fully well aware how fucked he is in the head. Mm-hmm. And he uses that to fuck with people. Because he also knows how people see him. And he literally goes up to fucking Crane and Finch is like, did you know that the reason cows moo is to warn their offspring of danger?
Yep. Do
you think calves moo for their parents? And just gives them this like creepy like fucking smile and like it's so he's so fucked. Like
he is, but dude, I love it because I don't want to say anything until we get to it. Yeah. There are things that happen like Warren knows more than he's leading on. 100%. It always feels like he is one step ahead of everybody, and he doesn't want to reveal his hand. Because again, we've kind of already said it. He is the fourth main character of this book. Mm. He's hard to read because there are times where you're like, oh, he's on the side of good, which is fucking crazy to say. And then there are times where you're like, no, he's still a fucked up individual. And he's not revealing his hand. And that is what makes him such an interesting character. Is like,
that's true.
He's a wild card. You don't know what he's going to do.
And the thing is like, the way it comes off to me anyway, about him like knowing more than he's letting on, is I feel like he's just having fun.
Oh, 100%.
Like, that's the feeling I get is like, he's just playing around.
100%.
Like he doesn't it's not that he doesn't take it seriously, but like he's like he likes the thrill of just like playing this game with Finch and Crane.
And it feels like a game to him.
Yeah.
Like you can tell that he is not taking this seriously.
But to keep going, so we don't get stalled out too long. So he's being weird with Crane and Finch with his temper is essentially like, fuck this, and throws him or kicks him through like the fucking wall or barn door. Yeah. And he's on the ground and basically like, you're going to fucking tell me what you know and stuff like that. And
it's a pretty funny moment too, because Warren's like, you just saw him assault me. Fucking arrest him right now. And she's like,
I didn't see anything.
What I saw is you tripped. And that's when Warren calls Officer Crane by a nickname.
Yeah.
Like Little Bird or because he mentioned something about like songbirds, canaries, that kind of deal. There's something about birds, and he calls her that, and she says, you don't get to call me that ever again.
Yeah.
Or you don't get to call me that anymore. And you kind of get that hint of like,
There's history.
There's history, which kind of leads back into the everyone here knows somebody that was a killer.
Mm-hmm. And that fact that there's history between them shows up like multiple times throughout this story.
Oh yeah, and we do find out about their history as well,
which I think comes up either later this part or next part.
Yeah,
but bottom line, Finch is like, you know, he's like, why was Carol here? All this other stuff. But they get interrupted by a what is that? Dispatch call or whatever.
Dispatch code.
And so basically they're like, oh, fuck, like we need to go. And I do like this little play between Crane and Warren where they have the little bit about like the Silence and the Lambs.
Yeah.
And shit like that. And honestly, kind of like they had this like whole like this isn't Silence of the Lambs and everything like that, and we're not teaming up. And it's kind of not a mic drop, but I don't know why I like this line so much. But as they're leaving and Warren's just creepily standing in the doorway, he's like, I've never been a fan of Chianti.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I was like, oh, that's kind of like a bar. Like, I actually kind of like that a lot.
I will say before we move on to the next scene, another thing that I like, it's the attention to detail where every time Warren is put under suspicion, he has an alibi. And he even says, because they at first they're like, you killed him, because obviously he's a serial killer. That's going to be the first fucking person you go to. And he's like, no, the last time Carol was here, or Agent Carol was here, he left unharmed, alive, and in a good mood. You can ask your officer. I forget the officer's name, but I
don't think he's really mentioned.
Yeah. He's like, you can ask your officer. He can vouch for me. And
that's true.
It's true. And every time there's something that happens that would implicate Warren, there is always someone who can be like, no, yeah, he is right. He was here.
Yeah.
And so you're through this whole story, you're like, oh my God, he's doing something.
Well, and that's the thing is like, he obviously knows what him and Carol talked about.
Yeah.
Like he obviously gave Carol some kind of piece of information, but for whatever reason, he doesn't want to tell it to them because he's playing this fucking game.
Yep.
You know, and he's having fun with it. But they get this call, and bottom line, the call is for a fire. Well, it turns out someone done set the motel on fire that Carol was staying at. And, you know, Finch is like, oh, fuck. Like, all the evidence and shit.
The notes, all that shit.
Everything's in there. So he charges in, and he's like, excuse me. He's like, this is like a stupid fucking idea. Why'd I do this? But he's grabbing up the notes and everything. And
thankfully they're not burned.
Yeah, they're not burned somehow because it's like a fucking inferno in there.
But he hears a sound.
Yeah, and shit like rafters fall, and he turns and looks. And in the motel room, which they had been in there earlier, and this was not in there.
Nope.
But there is a body now.
Yep. A
burnt
up dead body.
Yep. It is on fire, and he's like, oh, fuck. And I think what I like about this moment is they make you instantly think like, oh, is that Carol?
Yeah.
But then they immediately go like, well, not immediately, but pretty quick after they go like, no, it's not.
This is somebody else.
This is somebody else. But that somebody else adds to the fucking mystery.
Yeah. Like, more. Who the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly.
So they get the fire department out there.
Yep, they get the fire department out there and everything like that. And immediately, Raleigh, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, Mr. Wood.
He shows up with a crowd and everything like that and is like, we already know who fucking did this. It's that nail-biting freak and everything like that.
That is going to be a constant theme of whenever there is a tragedy afoot, they will instantly blame Edward Warren because, of course, you would. Again, kind of like what you mentioned earlier, we can make all kinds of commentary about like society and community and stuff like that, whether it's warranted or not. Obviously, I would think it's pretty warranted because, he's a fucking serial killer. Whether it's warranted or not, we're very quick to judge people, normally people who have lower social, not standing, but social like credibility.
Yeah.
We're very quick to pounce on them and say they're the reason for this because they're an easier target. And that definitely feels like what's going on here. because Warren is an easy target because he's a murderer.
Yeah.
Of course you would go to him.
Well, it also is like a fear thing, right? Yeah. Of like, what's scarier, not knowing who's doing it or just
putting a label on somebody?
Being like, well, he is the fucking serial killer that went free.
He should be the one that
you know.
But then we get into the whole like, it's a witch trial. Where it's like, okay, well, if we hang him now, little reference right there. If we hang him now, then no more murders will happen. And if he dies and the murderers continue, we know it wasn't him. Where it's like, okay, well, either way, he's guilty.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it also applies to like, the court of social opinion.
Yes,
or whatever,
I think that's what I was trying to say. Court of social opinion.
In the eyes of the law, he is not guilty of his crimes because he was acquitted.
Correct.
But just because the law says you're acquitted of something and that you are not guilty of it, people have already made their mind up about you, and therefore, in their eyes, you're guilty. Which, to be fair, they're not wrong. Yeah. Like, he's guilty.
Oh, yeah. There was a saying I heard a while ago, saying that opinions are like tattoos. They're really easy to get, and they're very hard to get rid of.
See, that is not where my mind went when you started that, because I was always told growing up, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and they all stink.
No, I've always liked that opinions are like tattoos because they are easy to get. You can walk in and go get one. If you want to get rid of one, that takes years
and money,
time.
Yeah, but yeah, they basically are like, look, no, they basically say Nailbiter fucking Warren is innocent because we were just there. He wouldn't have another alibi.
And it's coming from not only the sheriff who is trusted in this town, but it's also coming from somebody who has no connection to him. So there's no reason for him to even vouch for him.
And Mr. Wood brings up the fact of like, well, how can we trust you because you have a past relationship with him? How do we know you're not covering for him? And Crane's basically like, look, my past connection to Warren has nothing to do with this.
Yeah. Her only job is to protect the people.
Exactly. And once the crowd finally kind of dispersed, Finch is like, so you and Warren have like a past with each other? And immediately cuts to a teenage Crane and Warren. And she says, yeah, he was once my prom date.
Yeah. She's being a little bit vague about it, but you find out that they were like in love. Like that was like the love of her life. They were
high school sweethearts.
Yeah, they mentioned that multiple times. That like they were high school sweethearts.
Yep.
And that Warren was in love with her.
Now we don't know why she stayed in town and he had left. Maybe like a fight or breakup or something.
We kind of get a little bit of an answer to that. I think we get an answer to Warren because she mentions it. And it's then brought up that like at prom, he just disappeared.
Oh,
after prom, he just disappeared.
Yep.
And then we do get kind of her reasoning for staying in Buckaroo later on when she has a conversation with Alice.
Yeah.
So, we do get those answers.
I forgot about it, but yes, thank you for reminding me. He does just disappear.
Yeah.
And it's almost kind of mysterious how he just disappears too. But Finch is like, oh, you want to talk about it? She's like, that's what my therapist is for. Like, let's fucking keep trucking.
So real.
Yeah. Like, why the fuck would I just met you today.
Why the fuck?
Why would I talk to you about it?
Yeah. We're not in a fucking comic book. Come on.
Yeah. But as they are like kind of leaving the scene and stuff like that, we get a view of this masked individual, and this masked individual is wearing the same mask as it is shown for when Mr. Wood talked about his grandfather, the book burner.
Yep.
So someone is imitating one of the
copycat killer.
Yeah, the famous Buckaroo butchers.
Yep.
And one thing that I think was super interesting about this upcoming moment, because it shows the masked individual, he walked away from the scene and then is meeting someone in like a cemetery or a church or something like that outside of it. And they take the mask off the masked individual, which I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I thought this was going to be like a looming mystery. Well, it turns out it's fucking Hank.
Yeah.
One of the bullies that was fucking with Alice earlier in the story. Yeah. And he starts talking to the reader. To the reader, essentially.
So you find out that this is actually a POV shot.
Yeah.
So we are actually seeing Hank through the eyes of the perpetrator, the person who masterminded this.
Whoever's in the background. And Hank's like, I did what you said. I set it on fire and everything like that.
But you didn't tell me there was going to be a body.
Yeah, he's like, I
didn't want to hurt anyone.
Yeah, I didn't want to kill anybody. So he doesn't even know if the body was of someone already alive, like someone who was alive or someone already dead. He just burnt the motel down. And as he's yelling at whoever he's yelling at the reader, I guess we can say for now, all of a sudden you just see a knife in the panel and a fucking gash across Hank's face. Yeah. And he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he starts freaking out and running.
Yeah, he tries running away, and it does the classic, like, you know, they're trying to get away, and slowly you get closer, and you see the knife come up, and then as it comes down, it cuts to a panel, and it's fucking Finch stabbing into a stake.
Yep.
And that moment right there was when I was sold.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that is perfect.
Yeah.
I was like, that is so fucking good. And again, not something I've seen in a comic before. I mean, obviously my history with comics is a lot less than yours, so you might have seen it before. But that was my first time ever seeing a POV in a fucking comic book like that.
No.
It was so fucking cool. Because at first, when Hank talks to the reader, I just thought it was the way the panel was shot. And then the next panel was going to show whoever he was talking to.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see that knife slash and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
We're the killer.
Yeah.
We're whoever. And I was like, I was sold after that.
Yep.
I like when you talked about this could be like brought into like a TV show or something. I could visualize that moment in the show in my head. I was like, that is so fucking good.
Yeah.
There's only been a couple books that we've done so far where I've like gushed about the book. God Country was one.
Yeah.
Planet Hulk was another.
Yeah.
And this one.
Yeah.
I fucking love this book so fucking much.
I think our opinions of this book will be very evident before we even get to the end.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, I can go ahead and say I think this is like certified metal as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Like this
is metal as fuck.
Yeah, this book is just really good.
It's so fucking good.
So yeah, they're at this diner, hanging out, talking.
But so they're talking and they're trying to basically kind of formulate a plan at this point.
Yeah, because they don't have any leads.
They have just a fraction of Carol's notes that survived the fire.
They have his journal.
Yeah. And basically Crane's like, yeah, like what's in the journal that you found? And Finch is basically like, these are just kind of notes on all the 16 different Buckaroo butchers and his attempts to try and connect them. And he's also, and Finch is kind of reminiscing and talking about all the times Carol talked about the different serial killers from Buckaroo. And so they start kind of listing off some. And to bring it back to what I was saying earlier about how like each serial killer has like a quirk that's kind of silly, but still makes it a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
So the first one, we have the Crossbones Killer. He was a man obsessed with making skull and crossbone sculptures with obviously real skulls and crossbones.
Right.
And then you had the Terrible Two, a brother and sister duo who only killed other twins. So
that's crazy.
Super specific. Yeah. Like, how many twins do you run across?
We know two. We know two brothers that are twins. That's it.
So, man, I'm trying to think like how they managed to get serial killer status Well, to be fair,
they're probably traveling.
You're getting a double kill every time.
No, that's
so like
yeah, that's true.
After 3,
you're already a 6.
Yeah, you're a 6, and I think they say later in the book that 5 is like the minimum for.
Yeah, that 5 is the actual like legal requirement to be classified as a serial killer.
Yeah, they have the double XP boost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have the blonde, which her whole thing is when men would catcall her on the street, she would basically like cut out their tongues and then sew their lips together and then kill them.
Yep.
Which leads
That's
to
terrifying.
a pretty funny line from Crane, because earlier Finch makes a joke about being okay with the book burner.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like to read shit.
Yeah.
So he's like, I kind of get the book burner because I hate to fucking read too. And Crane kind of chastised him about it.
Yeah.
And then after bringing up the blonde, she's like, I take back judging you. Oh no, it wasn't the book burner. It was the silent movie killer.
Oh yeah, because he hates people talking during
in
a
movie theaters.
Yeah.
Right. And so she's like, I take back about the silent movie killer thing. When I was a teen, the blonde was like my hero.
Yeah.
Which obviously a comment on, like women's harassment and stuff like that.
No,
but I thought it was pretty funny because it's like, that's like a teen thing to do.
Yeah.
You see it all the time with like Jeffrey Dahmer.
I was about to say, that's
you know what I'm saying?
Like, that's something that happens in real life.
Yeah.
Where people were, and they kind of touch on that later on in this book, where there are people who view these serial killers as like celebrities.
Oh yeah.
In real life. And in the book, they do that too.
I don't want to mention his name because he's a piece of shit, but he's been on the internet lately for his trial and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You might be able to piece it together, but he's a really fucked up individual. He just got thrown in jail, but he murdered 2 women like very brutally, and a lot of people were like, oh, he's hot and shit like that. And that's so fucked. But that goes to prove the point is like, there's people out there who idolize motherfuckers like this.
Yep.
And I mean, we have TV shows.
Oh yeah.
On serial killers.
We have Netflix originals.
Yeah. I mean, we joked about it where like we were like oh, if this was a real serial killer, I'd be dead because they're like charming or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I get that. But at the same time,
but we have shows not about cops finding serial killers, but the serial killers are the main characters.
Oh yeah. They're like the quote unquote
hero of the story.
Hannibal.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's fictional, but he is based off of a real killer.
Yeah.
So like
that one's a little tricky because like in the show they're not necessarily portraying him as a hero.
And then you have like movies like American Psycho.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
But I like, it's so interesting though, because it's like we have, as humans, we're getting really too much on the tangent, but like it's
just interesting
because it's like, why do we as humans have such fascination with people like this?
Yeah.
Like it's such a Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
You know how many seasons that motherfucker has?
Hey, and every season is good.
They are bangers. I'm not gonna lie. They are pretty. I used to
watch that shit every night.
Dude, I don't know if I ever told you this. I probably did back in high school. I took psychology.
Yeah.
And we would do a packet for like 30 minutes. And then the teacher would just throw Criminal Minds on.
Oh yeah. I took criminal justice in high school, and we did the same thing where we would have like a small lesson, and then for the rest of the class, we'd watch an entire episode of Criminal Minds.
Yeah. I mean, kind of educational.
Yeah.
Kind of, explain it. But yeah, it's just really fascinating, like this kind of obsession with like serial killers. And I mean, wouldn't say obsessed with like the macabre or anything, but like I don't want to throw a label on myself because it feels cringy. But
no, I mean it's like I'm interested in like the occult stuff.
Yeah,
like I find that stuff scary, but also interesting.
Like the things I'd let a witch do to me, like a hot witch, And honestly, if I was Hansel or Gretel, I'd be eating that fucking candy too. Like I'm a fucking fat ass. Come on now, I love me some candy, but.
Back on the book.
Yeah, back on the book. Like I'm over here on like barely any sleep. So, pardon me. so we cut back to they have this joke. You know, she's like, blonde was my hero as a teen and everything. That's when she gets a phone call. No, it's like, it's a phone call, and she gets it from the mortician that is like the town mortician that examines the bodies and stuff, which funnily enough, which they do make a joke in this, his name is Morty.
Yeah, his nickname is Morty.
Well, nickname is Morty, but that's how he introduces himself.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm Morty. And Finch kind of calls it out, but they also get a radio call that there's a body.
Yeah.
And Morty's like, not the body you found, there's a new body.
Yeah.
And that body is good old Hank.
Yep.
That we just saw get murdered from our POV, and he's hanged up in an almost like a crucifix like cross position, and he's hanging off the sign of the murder store, the neon signs of the murder store.
Yep.
And I love the color of red.
Yeah.
And they use in this. It's very ominous and stuff like that. But the thing that they notice is that someone chewed on his fingers, or at least that's what they suspect.
Yep.
And that's the end of part 2.
Yeah.
Now on to part 3. The opening quote, which I think
each one has a quote.
Yeah, each one has a quote, and they're all lines someone speaks within
in
the chapter, which kind of sets the tone. And I bring this one up because we kind of mentioned this earlier, but the quote is, seems like every new person I meet lately is related to one of those serial killers, which, again, is kind of like a pretty prevalent thing that is in this story. But we immediately cut to the beginning of this part with Ethan's favorite fucked up character, the Nailbiter Warren.
Yep. And he's pruning some roses off of his bush, and he's even singing a song about, I forget what the song is about specifically. And he even says like, sorry, you're too pretty for this world. And, he cuts the roses off and throws them away. And
then someone's just like, hey, freak. And he turns around, and while it's not the white hooded men.
Oh, yeah, thank God. It is funny, though, because Finch makes a comment about that. He's like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah. A whole posse rounded up. They're all wearing like black like ski masks and stuff. They show up with a noose.
Yeah. And they're gonna basically lynch.
They're gonna lynch him because they think he's the one, because someone had gotten word from I forget if it's like someone either saw or just overheard, but they figured out Hank had his fingertips chewed off.
Yeah.
Supposedly. And so they're like, oh, well, who's the one guy in town that bites off fingertips?
Right.
So they go to lynch him, and we cut away from that to back to in front of the murder store, and Wood is just like going in on Crane like it's her fucking fault that someone hung this fucking man on his store, which you would think he'd honestly kind of be happy about it.
Yeah, because it gives his store notoriety.
Yeah, like, oh, come to the store that someone fucking got hung up on, like, Jesus Christ, But he's, like, going in on Crane about it, and then Alice shows up kind of being that angsty teenager, just being like, good riddance.
Yeah.
That guy was a fucking dickhead.
Piece of shit.
Yeah. And Crane's kind of like, isn't that a little kind of fucked up of you? And she's like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
I mean, he was gonna probably assault her.
Yeah.
Because he even says so himself.
Yeah. Yeah. And Crane even kind of questions her, like, do you care to explain to me why Hank is dead? Because she's doing her job as a cop.
Yeah.
Because there was an altercation between the two and everything like that. And she's like, also like, how did you find out? And she's like, Twitter.
Yeah.
The internet works wonders.
They make a lot of references to like actual media and stuff like that, and actual people as well.
Yeah, like it's very much, you can tell, set in modern times.
Yeah.
But so bystander comes up and is like, Crane, they're going to hang him. And they're like, hang who? What? And
they realize. And Alice even makes the same, statement of, good riddance.
Yeah, she's like, again, I say good riddance.
Yeah.
But then we cut back to Warren, and he's in the middle of getting hung. They haven't quite strung him up yet. And you can see Finch and Crane kind of rushing to the scene. Mm-hmm. They get him hung up in the air, and Finch I feel like this is kind of like a jab at some media where, like, in a scene where someone's getting hung, they like shoot the rope out.
Yeah, he even says, "I hope you're a good shot."
Yeah, can you shoot the rope out? And Crane's like, I don't got time for that. Like,
and so she just fucking hits the tree.
Yeah, she just fucking runs into the tree and knocks it over and frees Warren.
Very lucky that
tree didn't
fall on them, or just absolutely fuck up their car.
I mean, the car is a little fucked.
Oh no, I'm saying the car is fucked. But I've seen people hit trees and just fucking die.
Yeah. But Warren gets free, and then all the hooded people kind of run off. And as they're running off, Crane kind of goes like, "You think just because you have a hood on your face doesn't mean I don't know who you are? We like grew up together."
Yeah, it's a small town.
Yeah, like I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna kick your ass and everything like that.
That's another thing I liked about this, and I feel like you and I can kind of relate pretty heavily to this. I like the small town setting where everyone knows each other.
Yeah.
Because, like, you grew up in a very small town. I grew up in a very small town.
23 people graduating class.
Right. I mean, it's very nice. Like, it feels relatable to me. It feels I hope it feels relatable to you as well. Because it feels
you want to know
personal.
Why it kind of feels relatable? There's this saying of small town and small ideas.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy prevalent. Because I've seen it firsthand from coming from up there to coming down here, how easy it is in a small town to just be unchanging.
Yeah. Stay oblivious to the world around you.
Obviously, I don't know if I want to say any of that because I feel like it just not. Bottom line, it is very easy for small towns to harbor bigotry and small-minded kind of concepts and stuff like that.
Because bigotry isn't just racism. Bigotry is the unwillingness to accept anything new in your life. That has, obviously racism plays a part in bigotry.
Yes.
But bigotry as a whole is not just racism.
Yeah, it can become that. I'm not saying every small town is just like that and full of bigots and
no, but it happens.
It's a very easy breeding ground. It's like the concept.
You get that in big cities too.
It's like the concept of echo chambers.
Yes, 100%.
Where it's just the one idea circulating constantly until everyone just basically assumes that's facts.
And that's because small towns are their own ecosystem.
Oh yeah,
they small towns are more cut off from things that people that live in cities have. Like it's wild because when Nicole and I first went home, because I'm from middle Indiana, I went home for the first time, and when we passed through my hometown to get to my grandparents, I saw they finally put a Walmart there. That was in 2017, 2018.
Yeah,
because we went up there a couple years after we started dating, because I wanted her to see my family. That's wild that my hometown finally got a Walmart.
My hometown finally got a Dollar General.
That's wild.
I mean, it was a couple years ago that they got it, but it was like, again, kind of around the same time.
Yeah. To me, that sounds wild because you can throw a fucking stone here and there's a fucking Dollar General, and then you can throw a stone in the other direction and you hit just another Dollar General.
Yeah. Yeah. And they had just gotten it. Dude, when I tell you it's a small town, it's a fucking small town.
Yeah.
It had a total of like 2 lights.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was fucking tiny.
I mean, I've told people that you can enter my hometown and you can drive through it in less than 10 minutes.
Dude.
If you're driving, less than 10 minutes.
As long as the lights were green, 2 minutes max.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, dude, it was fucking tiny. But anyway.
Yeah, we come from bumfuck nowhere.
I literally lived in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, dude.
So yeah, they're about to hang Warren. They are able to save him at the last moment, and they don't sugarcoat it. They're like, we're not saving you because we like you. We're saving you because, we have fucking questions. And she's like, I'm taking you in.
And he's like, are you arresting me?
And she says, no, I'm protecting you.
Yeah. And he's also like, man, I never thought you would actually save me.
Yeah.
It's like, let's not get carried away.
Yeah. So they put him behind bars because, everyone is in a tizzy, and they are wanting him dead. And we get this nice little conversation between, I believe, Alice and Warren. We don't see that Alice is there. I could be wrong about this, but he basically talks about how he went into the city. He went to Portland, and it was his first time really being out since being released from prison. And he saw a woman there that was eyeing him, and he was like, it had been so long since I flirted. Yeah. And like, he was like,
and she's attractive.
And he even gives this like nice little wink and stuff. And he was like, and I felt nervous for the first time. I felt nervous and I didn't know what to say. And he begins to introduce himself. And before he can even say his name, she spits in his face. And he's like, and that's when I realized that like everyone knows who I am.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what I look like. I don't have to introduce myself. I think he's talking to Carol or
Crane.
Crane.
Yeah. He's talking to Crane, and he's also talking about like, that was also when I knew that everyone is watching me.
Yeah.
Analyzing me. Like just waiting for me to fuck up or do something. And so,
which is super interesting because again, the idea of serial killers don't show emotion. They're very antisocial people, yet they're charismatic. And yet we get Warren's perspective on something that isn't normal for a serial killer, where he says for the first time in years, he felt nervous.
Yeah.
Like it's almost as like the last time he felt nervous was when he was with Crane.
Yeah. Which to me, I don't know if it says anything about his, because it's very apparent, without getting too spoilery, it's very apparent that Warren still has some kind of love towards Crane.
He has a humanity in him.
Yeah, towards Crane.
Yeah.
No, I don't think anyone else. I think that moment with the woman in Portland was just like, he had finally like been free. Obviously hadn't been with anybody in a long time and stuff like that. But like, I definitely, he relates it to that nervousness of when probably he was with Crane and stuff like that, because that's probably the only other time he's ever felt nervous in his life.
Yeah.
But he uses that story of like, it's when I realized everyone's watching me and analyzing me. And he thinks, he's like, so you think with me knowing that I would just kill some dumb kid in the middle of the street and hang him up? And Crane's like,
he almost feels like disrespected. Yeah, you think I'm that much of an idiot?
Stupid. But and the sad thing is, he makes a valid point.
Oh yeah, he's completely right.
And as they're kind of in the middle of this conversation, Morty shows up and he's like, let me give you the report on the body that you found in the burning motel and everything like that. And he is like, you're not going to believe who it is. And when he finally reveals it, he's like, it's the book burner. It like the legit book burner's body.
Yep.
And they're like, he's been dead forever.
Yeah. Like he should just be bone.
Yeah. How is he even, like, he's buried in the ground. Like, how is he?
And we know he's been dead for a very long time because he is Wood's grandfather.
Yeah.
And Woods, he doesn't look young. He looks like he's maybe in his 40s.
Yeah.
And if that's his grandfather, he has to at least be 100, if not a little bit older. So the fact that the body was still so fresh, like you get this feeling of like, what is going on here?
Yeah, and he also explains the fingers weren't chewed off; they were pulled off.
Yeah, they were cut off and then pulled.
Yeah, they weren't chewed off, so that immediately again reinforces Warren's like it wasn't me.
Yeah,
you know, and like Shaggy once said. Okay,
yeah.
I was waiting for you to.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you. Okay.
There's also, I will say, there's another thing that's being punctuated here is that the electricity in the mortuary is going in and out, and they attribute it to just faulty wiring that they have to get fixed. So, because while he's talking, the lights are going out, and fucking Finch is like, "Can you not get this shit fixed like soon?" And as Morty is talking to them and explaining everything that's going down, and they're trying to really piece this together of like, how the fuck is his body so like fresh? We see this white cloaked individual.
Kind of looks like Moon Knight.
Kind of like, well, yeah, it looks like Moon Knight. The light goes off, goes back on, nothing's there. Light goes off, back on. We see him standing in the doorway of the mortuary. Light goes off, he's gone when it comes back on, and he keeps getting closer and closer, and eventually he ends up picking up
like a knife,
or he pulls out a knife and he stabs Morty. Yeah. Now, I don't believe he kills him.
No, he's dead.
Oh, he is dead?
Yeah, he's dead.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kills him and fucking starts running. And, you know, Finch and Crane they're hauling ass trying to get this guy. Or Crane is.
Finch is trying to keep Morty alive.
Yeah. And she goes to get him. She grabs the cloak and she's like, "I finally got you." When she pulls it off, there's no one there.
Yeah, and that's immediately when I was like, okay.
This is what the supernatural part is.
That's when I'm like, so like supernatural shit? What's going on?
And something that happens towards the end of the book.
Yeah.
So they lose the killer, the suspect, and that's when Crane is like, "Okay, enough is enough. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We have the body of the book burner," and she takes him to the serial killer graveyard, which is literally, it's a mausoleum with a bunch of unmarked graves.
Yep.
And she's like, "We're going to start digging."
And because she technically knows where the book burner's body is supposed to be, like, even though they're unmarked. I feel like probably as the sheriff or the
it's probably something that gets passed down.
Yeah,
like this is on, because she also says this is not open to the public.
Yeah, and whenever they fucking get here, like, even the fence is like chained up and like
overgrown,
all that shit, and yeah, so
and the media doesn't know about it either.
Oh, yeah, I think she even explains, like, if the media knew about this, it would be
because that is something that happens in real life, where these, you know, killers have been killed, and their worshipers will go to their graves and, you know, do crazy shit there, like worship them, do seances, do all kinds of stuff.
It's not even the like worshipers or fans. It's also the people that they
hate. Oh, 100%. Like
it's everyone.
It's everyone. It's on all sides, yes. But that's why we started putting them in unmarked graves or under different pseudonyms, you know, that kind of deal.
I personal now, I think we shouldn't just report on them at all, because
I agree. No, I 100% agree. Yeah. So part 4 or chapter 4 opens up. It's like what is it? Anon or whatever, Alcoholics Anonymous,
like AA.
Yeah, AA. But it's for people who are related to serial killers.
Yep.
And it's this girl who's talking about her brother, who was this extremely gifted artist who was really good and just had a super bright future and was very smart, did very well in school, and then just something changed, and he would take people into their basement and use power tools on them and drill into their skulls.
Yeah, he was like, she was like, he would make people's bodies
into art,
into like like he saw them as a canvas.
Yeah.
And she also explains like he didn't do it because he was like traumatized or anything. He just had the inspiration of like, you know, I've done all this other art. What's something new?
Yeah.
And
and she even says like when he was caught, he said that it was his abstract phase.
Yeah. Like it's not even like he's not even recognizing it as something serious.
Yeah.
He's just like it's just a phase.
Yeah.
I'll grow out of it soon, Mom, I promise.
Yeah, and I love it. I love that.
It's so creepy and weird.
And we do find out that Woods is actually in this meeting because obviously he is related to somebody who is one of the butchers. Yeah. And you can tell he's being very disrespectful because he brings up the idea of like using these people's past and their relations to the killers to profit for the city or for the town. And the organizer of this meeting is like, if you're going to be disrespectful, you need to fucking leave.
This guy's also, I'm pretty sure, the one that tells him like, you're basically your granddad wasn't shit. He killed 5 people.
He might have been one of the first, but he was
the least remarkable.
A technicality.
Yeah.
He even said, because he mentions that his grandfather didn't even go out burning buildings with the purpose of killing people. He just accidentally killed people.
Yeah. So it's funny that his granddad, as he touts, actually, I don't think it was the AA guy. I think it's someone else that says that. Maybe it is that. It's later in the book. Yeah. I don't remember exactly who it was, but immediately after Mr. Wood is kind of like, you know, isn't it time we took the power back to like use these killers as like, instead of making it like, oh, woe is me, let's use it to like.
He mentions that the killers and the news outlets took their power from them and made them scared. Now it's time to take the power back.
And then we immediately cut to Crane and Finch digging one of the graves, and Finch is kind of like, are you gonna help me? And Crane's like, you're basically done already. There's no need for me to. Like she's just been standing by and fucking watching them do it. But she's obviously been digging. She's got dirt on her and stuff like that. But she basically explains like the whole like Buckaroo butchers thing and like this whole fear of the town making serial killers didn't really come to fruition until Warren. Because Warren was the one that brought the media. Yeah. Because he was like, because all the other ones were covered like locally and stuff, but Warren was nationwide, like news. Yeah. And then after that and his trial and stuff, it just, the media came in like droves. And basically that's how the whole like Buckaroo butchers and everyone found out about the 16 different serial killers and things like that. And as they're having this conversation, they get shot at. Yeah. And luckily...
luckily Finch had that spade.
Yeah, he had the shovel, like, next to him standing up, and the fucking bullet hit the shovel. And just... So, it like, if that shovel wasn't there, Finch would be down.
Yeah, we'd be down one main character.
Yeah, we'd be down. So, they you know, dive into the fucking grave, and Crane, being the badass she is
pulls
like,
a gun out and starts...
Yeah, she's like, I know where he's at.
Yeah.
Starts giving out Finch, suppressive fire.
Yeah, Finch says, cover me. And
she's like...
He finds the perpetrator, which is the same person from or at least cloaked in the same outfit as the night before, and he tackles him and starts beating the shit out of him. And interlaced with this, we get a jump to Alice at the prison or at the jail, the local jail, and she takes the keys from a sleeping guard and she goes to Warren. And she has questions for him. Yeah. And he even said, he makes a nice little Hannibal reference as well when she goes up to him. And, she essentially wants information about why Hank was killed what's going on in this town. And she's like, and if you give me answers, I'll give you these. And she's like, she gives it like her fingers, like she's gonna let him chew on her fingers.
This whole moment right here is instantly when I was like, okay, there's some weird shit going on with Alice.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like I was like, why the fuck is she like? At first I was like, maybe it's just morbid curiosity. Mm-hmm. Like they're kind of doing a shtick because she's kind of like goth alternative.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So like they're like, okay, let's make her just have a morbid sense of curiosity about this shit and everything like that. So that's what I thought they were doing at first, but then kind of their interaction, I was like, okay, there's some weird kind of shit going on here. Like she isn't necessarily, I think, normal. I don't think she's like crazy, but something's not right. But they have that interaction. Then it immediately cuts back to Finch's fight with the Moon Knight serial killer knockoff.
Yeah.
And as they're fighting, the cloaked figure kind of gets away because he overpowers Finch, and Crane starts shooting at him. The cloak guy pulls out his blicky and starts shooting back, and the hooded guy starts to get away, but Crane manages to subdue him. And it turns out this hooded figure is Ronnie, the other bully that was harassing Alice.
Yeah.
And Crane's like, like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, well, I never wanted to hurt anybody. They killed my best friend. And we're just supposed to scare people away from town and everything like that. And as she's wanting to press him further to like be like, who do you mean they?
Yeah. And I will say she's also saying like, you're okay.
Yeah.
Like everything's gonna be okay. You just need to work with us, that kind of deal.
Well, because at first she's trying to just get him to drop the gun because he's still got the gun in his hand.
Yeah.
But as, he obviously starts losing his mind a little bit. He also brings up the fact of like the concept that Buckaroo's cursed. That he also kind of brings up like
there's a curse.
There's a curse. And as she's like, trying to talk to him, he just immediately puts the gun to his head and he says, I did it for the town. Yeah. And then ends up taking his own life. Luckily, they don't really show it. You just kind of get a panel with some crows or ravens flying off, and what do you call those? Like when they have like, because it has blam. Like, isn't there a specific?
Oh, onomatopoeia.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there's like a comic book term or something like that, but yeah, it just has blam. The crows flying off, so obviously he shot himself, took his own life. Shows him dead on the ground, and Crane and Finch are kind of like recovering from the incident and kind of just being like, well, to add more problems to our already bullshit list, there is no body in the book burners, like where he's supposed to be buried. Like his body's just gone. And as they're bringing that up, fucking Finch just falls through, I guess, a wooden floor and into this dark kind of like cavern tunnel space. And when he gets up and looks around, you just see like barred doors all over the place.
Yeah. And we don't know what's inside them.
Yeah. And, Crane's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And as he's like kind of looking around, it's panels of Finch, and he's like looking around, and then he starts going like, no, like freaking out. Oh my God. And he like is like gagging and stuff. And then we finally get the reveal of what happened to Carol because they find him chained to a chair with no arms and no legs.
And his
mouth's sewn shut. And they're like, is he dead? And as they're like reaching out to touch him,
he wakes
up and he starts freaking the fuck out. Yep. And that's the end of part 4.
Yeah.
When that moment hit, I was like,
yeah.
I was like, dude, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
dude?
I read this at work and I was like, oh my fucking God.
I honestly, to be real, I feel like even though we're going through it, I feel like it's not doing it justice because it's just so good.
It really, this is a book where I'm like, you have to read
it.
You have to read this.
It is just fantastic. Like the entire, after that first moment where it hooked me, the entire time I was just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I wanted to figure it out. So I'm like right there with Crane and Finch, just like, what the fuck is going on, dude? Like, what the hell is happening in this fucking town?
Yeah. Now, as we get into this 5th chapter, just because the episode is going pretty long, this might be the last chapter we cover. This might be our first two-parter episode, because this book is dense.
Yes.
It's not the long. It's not like an omnibus.
Yeah.
But there's just so much content in it that you can really think about and discuss. That like this episode's already. It's almost at an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So, just to save us having a 4-hour episode.
Well, I say we go ahead and cover part 5 since it is a 10-part book.
Yep.
Cover part 5.
And that's also what the trades do. They cut them into 5.
And then we'll come back for a second parter.
Yeah.
Our first ever. And you know what? I could talk about this book all day.
Yeah, for real.
Good. But let's get into part 5. The opening quote for this, I'm bringing this one up because I also really like this quote in the sense of I feel like it's kind of apropos. Because it says, if you keep digging into this, it's going to cost you. Yeah. And I like the idea of like, one, it means literal in the sense of like, it's going to cost you a lot of effort and time and like possibly like pain and heartache. But it also to me is like, it's going to cost you your soul. Yeah. Like just, it's going to eat you up alive.
I agree. And I viewed it from the idea or the perspective of, when you look into something that's so depraved as, these killers who have no issue taking other people's lives, it takes a part of you. Yeah. Like it takes a part of you mentally where like I could never imagine being, a police officer or, a homicide detective.
Oh yeah. No.
Or somebody.
Even an EMT.
Yeah. I have such respect for, the people in those professions because of the mental strain it goes through. Or that those people go through, the horrible shit you see, and I imagine every day it takes something.
Oh yeah,
and obviously and we've obviously seen cases where people in those positions kind of just snap and they lose it, and it doesn't look fun.
No,
obviously that's their job. They should be prepared for that because they've signed up for it. They should be prepared to honor their duty, but.
You never, I don't think, no matter how much you train.
The human condition.
Yeah, you're never going to be prepared enough for that.
Yeah.
But, so, we start off, and we are kind of getting more into a backstory / mindset of Warren, Nailbiter. And he basically poses the question of, like, have you ever tasted human blood before? And he's like, you probably only had like tasted a little bit, like you cut your finger and that your instant reaction is to put it in your mouth. He's like, some people say it tastes a little sweet. Well, to me, it tasted like battery acid. And so because of that, he started to wonder if everyone's blood tasted like that. And it is revealed that this is actually a flashback because it's all in like gray. Mm-hmm. This is actually a flashback to when Elliot Carroll was interrogating Warren.
Yeah.
And he's like, Warren kind of gives like this bullshit kind of like why he ended up the way he did kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Carroll calls him out immediately. He's like, don't give me that bullshit. You came from a happy family, a fairy tale life. You just disappeared after senior prom.
Yeah.
And that's where we get kind of the reveal of he just disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, you came from a fairy tale life. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, you were kind of like tortured or whatever. It's kind of like to me, I could be wrong. It feels a bit like a nod to the whole like Joker and Dark Knight, where he comes up with different stories as to how he got the scars on his face and everything like that. Yeah. I could be wrong about that, but that's just where my mind goes with that moment. So Carol's like giving him pictures of all Warren's victims, and he's like, should I know these lovely people and everything like that? Like, just being a dickhead, honestly. And this is actually kind of the beginning of Carol's descent into figuring out the connection between the 16 different serial killers for Buckaroo. And so Carol's like, what is the connection and stuff like that? And to bring up how we were talking about, Warren definitely knows more than what he's leading on to. Because he says to Carol, he's like, listen to me, Carol, if you keep digging into this, it's going to cost you. Yeah. Again, that's the same quote from before the part, but
it's very literal.
And it's very literal because we have the benefit of seeing the future.
Yeah. Or the present.
Or the present of what happens to Carol, where it has literally cost him an arm and a leg.
A couple of them.
Yeah. But because this is like, I wouldn't say it's a dream, but they do this weird but cool transition of like where he says it's going to cost you, and it goes from the gray to like just color.
Normal,
with him standing at the like interrogation table, I'm assuming, because you don't get a huge wide shot, but it's him wearing the same clothes as that flashback, and his arm being roped down and a machete or something fucking cutting his arm off, and his mouth showed shut. And like his eyes wide of fear and everything. Yeah. Kind of referencing again where he's like, it's going to cost you. And that happened to him. Yeah. And then it shows him
in the
hospital and like the doctor being like, he's lucky to be alive and everything like that. They basically said besides his obvious injuries, they ran a CT scan, and it doesn't show like he has any kind of like brain damage or anything like that. But he's like, I can't speak on like the mental trauma. Not there's no,
because he's in a coma.
Yeah, there's no physical injury, but
there's physical injury.
Well, to his brain. I mean,
yeah.
To his brain. But he's assuming essentially that the coma is like mentally related, like from the trauma and everything like that. So that they're essentially now in the boat of like, okay, we found Carol, and Carol knows the thing that we're after, but he's in a coma. So now we just got to sit here and wait.
And something I really like, now keep in mind we're 5 issues in, and this is really the moment where Finch kind of sits down and says, I have to figure it out. I have to figure out whatever Carol figured out. Because he's hurt. We don't know what happened to him. We don't know if he was maybe tortured or what, but my friend is hurt. And so now I'm going to find the son of a bitch that did this.
Yeah.
So at this point, Finch is all in. He wants to find out who's doing this now.
Yeah. He's like,
which I like. It took us halfway through the book for Finch to finally be like, I'm in.
Well, I think he's
not a reluctant hero anymore.
Yeah, he's not a reluctant hero, but I also think it's somewhat realistic, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, why would you necessarily like want to deal with all that of like the serial killers and stuff? You just want to find your friend.
Yeah, no, I completely
agree. He found his friend, but he found his friend absolutely fucked up from whatever he was looking into. So like, yeah. And it's kind of that, you know, like mentality of like that brotherhood of like police force and stuff like that. So like there's obviously that motivation behind it too, which, you know, is definitely probably a driving factor. But yeah, I'm also with you. I like the fact that he's now just buckled in the ride.
Yeah.
Like I'm here till the ride's over with, basically.
Yep. And we get that especially throughout the rest of this volume. Again, we don't know what happens in the other 2 volumes.
Yeah.
But from what we've read, Finch is all in.
Yeah, he's all in. They leave the hospital and they come back to the jail or
the local jail,
the
town
sheriff's office or whatever. Yeah, the local jail. And they walk in and fucking Alice is sitting there talking to Warren. And Shannon Crane is like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, go. I'm about to tell your parents. And Alice is like, I don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. And she fucking walks off. And Crane is like, okay, like you can go home now to Warren. And he's like, you're letting me out? And she's like, I put you in here to protect you. I told you you weren't arrested.
And she even says, I don't feel like protecting you anymore. Now go home.
Yeah. She's like, I don't feel like dealing with you. And as he walks away, she literally goes, God, I hate him. Like,
yeah.
Because he does this thing. Because we talked about it earlier where he calls her Little Bird. That's like his pet name for her.
Yep.
And she told him, don't fucking call me that. But Warren, being kind of the dickhead he is.
Oh, of course he's going to do it.
He calls her Little Bird any chance he fucking gets. And so he says that when he leaves, and she's just like, God, I fucking hate him.
Yeah.
But Finch is like, are you sure it's a good idea to like fucking let him go? And she's like,
can't keep him there.
Can't keep him there, but also this allows us to see what he does next. So we can keep an eye on him. So if he is involved with what happened to Carol, we can see his next move. Otherwise, like, basically she's like, we have to see what he does next in order to
implicate him. Yeah.
Well, to continue their investigation.
Yeah. Again, it's that idea of like, he's always one step ahead. Like if he is involved, they can't tell.
Yeah, they have no fucking clue. And then they basically, and then so she's like, okay, like now that we've done that, we get to go do my favorite part of the job. And Finch is like, what is that? And it's her having to notify that Ronnie is dead to the family. And so they show up. She, tells the family, hey, Ronnie's dead. And they do the typical, like, impossible. He wouldn't kill or hurt anybody and stuff, even though we've seen otherwise. Not just him being, like, with a gun, killing people and shit, but, like, also him just being a dickhead teenager.
Yeah.
But Crane's basically like, do you mind if I look around while, look around his stuff and everything, see if there's any evidence or implication of what's going on with him, why he was involved and stuff. And at first they're kind of
hesitant, but eventually they're like, she's never lied to us. She's always done good by us.
And they go into his room and Finch is like, teenage boy, first place to always look is under the bed. And
they find a suitcase.
They find a suitcase and it has all this like serial killer stuff in it. But they both are like, this is a bit too fucking easy.
Yeah.
Like,
and the first thing they think of is like, where would he get all of this? And they instantly look at each other and they're like, shit.
Because one of the items is the book burner mask.
Yep.
Which is one of the first things when Finch came to town fucking picked up inside the murder store owned by Mr. Wood.
Yep.
And so when they see that, they're like, oh, shit.
Oh, something that Warren did say before he left, because Finch asked Warren, what are you going to do now? And he says, I need to go pay a visit to Mr. Woods.
Mm-hmm. And so they put what Warren said together, and then the
suitcase.
The suitcase with the book burner mask and stuff like that. And so they start racing. Yeah. Like full on Need for Speed towards the murder store.
Yeah. And this is when we get another POV shot.
Mm-hmm. Of Mr. Wood talking to the reader.
Yep.
Obviously the
main perpetrator.
Yeah, the main perpetrator. And he's saying like, I only agreed to do this for you to like drum up business. Like he's the one that convinced Hank and Ronnie to do what they were doing.
But now they're both dead.
And he's like, look, this is getting out of hand. I only did this to drum up business and to get the killer con.
Yep.
To like get money to lubricate the wheels on that.
Yeah. And he's essentially telling like, I'm fucking done. And I think he even says like, I'm going to fucking talk Like, I'm gonna bust this whole operation. Which, why the fuck would you do that?
Why would you ever tell someone that? But to be fair, he's kind of emotional because he's like, and who the hell dug up my granddaddy's body?
Yeah.
You know, like, but I think also it's a matter of fact that Mr. Woods kind of like, he thinks he's the head honcho around here. So he doesn't think anything can really hurt him.
Yeah.
Which, he's wrong.
True. Yeah, not true.
Because as he's going in on the perpetrator pulls out a lit match, and Mr. Woods like, now wait a minute, there's no need for all that shit. Yeah. And as Crane and Finch get close to the murder store, there's like smoke piling up and stuff.
It's all lit on fire.
And there is a fire happening, and we get a reveal of the perpetrator that we were getting the POV shots from, but we don't know who or if this is the same perpetrator.
Yeah. It's a completely, and Crane even mentions this because Finch asks later on if she knows who this is. This is a completely new killer.
Yep.
As far as we know, because he is in a almost like ram mask type
like
deal.
Some Skyrim level shit.
Yeah. It invokes like satanic occult stuff. And he has two big ass like knives. I don't think they're machetes. I think they're just big ass knives.
Yeah.
And he has completely dismembered Mr. Woods. Like his head is on the fucking table. His body is strewn about in pieces.
Yep.
He's dead.
And he starts charging at Finch and Crane. And
Crane lights his ass up.
They both do.
Yeah,
they both just go pop, 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 pop.
Yeah,
start shooting into him, and he fucking falls to the ground. And my dumb ass is like, wow, that was anticlimactic.
He's dead.
He's fucking dead. Because they're standing around being like, what the hell was that? And like, oh shit, Mr. Wood's dead. And then this motherfucker stands back up.
Like Michael Myers.
Yeah. I'm like, why did I believe? Because I put in my notes that I was like, what did I say? So I was basically like, cool suit. Does it stop bullets? And then the next note is literally, holy shit, it stops bullets.
Yeah. So it's, he gets back up, and he ends up throwing like a big ass bookshelf on top of them, and it knocks out Crane. And Finch is trying to get it lifted off, but of course he can't. It's too heavy. And as the killer is about to kill Finch, Warren saves them. He jumps on the killer's back and starts, tussling with them. And you get hints that he knows more than what he's saying, because he even starts talking to the killer, the perpetrator, and he's like, why now? Why are you doing this?
Well, the first thing he says is, after they have the little scuffle and then they get broken apart, and he's like, so we meet again.
Yeah.
We meet again.
Yeah.
Warren, you sneaky snake little bastard. Dude. What the fuck is going on with you?
He is such a good character. I love him. He's such a good character.
And the thing is like, I hate that his character is so interesting.
Yeah. It's very good.
Because like, he's fucking twisted. And like, but he's so, and his character in itself adds to the already there's mystery enough of what's going on.
No, yeah.
And then his character just adds a little more. And it's like, dude, what the fuck is going on, man? But they have a little tussle. He's like, so we meet again. And he starts going like, so what's the angle? Like, what are you doing? All this stuff. And that,
why do you come back now?
Yeah, but he gets no answer.
The person's completely quiet, doesn't say anything, doesn't even make sounds while struggling. And he, they're doing this like kind of staring match, showdown. And the killer looks at the burning building, because at this point they're like outside, and sees Finch struggling to get it off, and the fire starting to get over them. And Warren's even like, you think I'm going to play hero? Like, that's not what I'm here for.
And save her.
Yeah.
And he mentions her specifically, because he is still in love with Crane.
Yeah.
I don't care what he says.
Oh yeah,
he's a lover boy and a serial killer.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, he's like, do you think I'm gonna let you get away? And then they just stare at each other, and he's like, ah, shit. And he's like, fuck. And he goes, and he's like, he tells Finch to lift, and him and Finch are able to get off of the bookcase off of them,
and they save Crane, and obviously the new killer, Skyrim serial killer, because that's how I kind of thought of him in my head ever since. He fades off into the night,
gets away,
and Crane's like, oh, fuck, I can't believe, like,
she owes him one.
Yeah, like, you saved me. I hate the fact that I now owe you for my life because you saved me. And
he even says, like, I'm no hero. Like,
yeah. And she also is like, who's the guy with the knives? Like, who is this motherfucker? And he's like, I had no idea. Calls her Little Bird again because he loves pissing her off. And he's like, must be like the newest Buckaroo butcher, basically. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, so why did you come see Mr. Wood? And he's like, well, I was a silent partner in his murder store and the whole like killer con thing and stuff like that. And he felt that Wood was about to screw him out of like money and stuff like that. So he came to talk to him. But again, he kind of has like a little bit of alibi and stuff like that, because you have that guy masked standing over the fucking corpse and everything like that. And then him showing up and fighting the guy. I don't think he killed Wood at all.
No.
But there's still that level of...
Well, obviously something's going on because he knows him.
Yeah, exactly. There's still that level of like... I don't know, because we didn't necessarily see who he was talking to.
Yeah.
We just saw the aftermath.
Yep.
So for all we know, the mask guy, like, showed up after he was already killed.
Yeah.
But I find that highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Because of just the interaction between Warren and the masked killer.
Yeah. Plus, you can kind of tell Warren's a little, like... not upset that Woods is dead.
Yeah.
But he is like, well, there goes my fucking business venture right there.
But he also as he walks away from Crane, he's kind of like, I hope this whole like new masked killer, this new butcher, kind of takes some of the attention from me. But he's like, but I doubt it, because after all, I'm the star. So still showing a little bit of that narcissism.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
100%.
everything like that. And he goes away. It's like the next day, and Crane and Finch are back in the hospital. And they're basically like, we still have like really no fucking leads on what's going on or anything like that.
And that's kind of when we're introduced to a new character, a new side character from the FBI named Abigail Barker. And essentially she's telling Crane, like, I'm taking over. Yeah. Like, this is now my mission. And to avoid all the keeping secrets from each other and hiding evidence, how about we just go ahead and share our notes now so we can get that out of the way.
And I'll say you were a help from the beginning.
Yeah.
Basically, like, I'll give you like a Cliff Notes recognition, but
essentially, yeah.
I own this now.
And she notices that
Finch
is there, and she's like, what the fuck is he doing here? And Crane is like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And she says, he's not supposed to be here because he's on trial for murder. And that's
all we get from that. Yeah. That's like the mic drop for Finch right now.
Now, this next part, because this is coming up to the end of part 5, chapter 5, we get a POV shot. Now, this kind of leads into one of my theories. We get a POV shot of like a trailer home or just a home in like a, lower.
Yeah, it's just a small home.
Yeah, small home. And someone opens the door and we see two parents that, obviously they are some like white trash hillbilly motherfuckers and they are assholes. And the person goes downstairs into a basement and says, if I were a serial killer,
Who would I kill next?
Who would I kill next? And it's Abigail
Alice.
Alice. Sorry, I've been doing that so much because they're both,
Yeah.
in this book. And it's Alice in the basement, kind of with that same thing that Carol had, where it's like all the newspaper clippings and maps and shit and the string just all over the walls.
Like she's like being her own little mini investigator.
Now, there's more to Alice that we haven't gotten to the part that Mason and I had brought up earlier.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good, but that was the start of my like theory crafting on what's going on.
I can't wait to get to the next part. Dude.
Just because of that POV shot, because it's like it almost seems as though the POV shot is reserved exclusively for the killer.
But I would fight that from the last issue, the last couple pages.
I can understand that. Yeah. But that's just my theory crafting. Yeah. So obviously when we get further into it for the next part, we can talk about it. But that is the end of chapter 5. So fucking good.
Dude. So I'm gonna be honest. There's moments where I felt like I was just kind of lost in the sauce because the entire time I'm just like, this is so fucking good.
There were times where I was forgetting that, like, oh wait, I have to cover this for the podcast. Yeah. Like I need to write something down. Yeah. And I'll be honest, I didn't have to write much down because it was so engrossing that because there are times where we'll cover a book. Well, yes, I enjoyed it. It's a superhero comic.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to get things mixed up from other comics I read. This was just such a breath of fresh air and so engrossing that like I barely have any notes.
I don't have a lot of notes just because I found it hard to like, because if I noted every little detail,
you'd have 4 pages.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, like I remember most of the things that happen. So I was like, okay, I'm only going to notate like one thing to like remind me where I'm at in the story, like for my notes. And then like if there's a super important detail that I need to remember, that's what I put in my notes for the most part. But while recording this, I barely looked at my notes.
Yeah.
I mean, like I, for the most part, remember pretty much every detail of what happens.
Yeah.
But I love this book.
Yeah, it's very good. I'm so excited to cover
part 2
because the other half of this book.
Part 2 is gonna have all the crazy
the
shit.
Twists, yeah, and it gets crazier. And the thing is that this is only part
volume
1. This is part 1 of a 3-part story.
And you know what? So like
we're gonna have to do like 6 episodes.
The first 5 issues or parts is pretty much set up.
Oh yeah.
Part 5 is going into part 6. Well, part 6, I would say, just to give, I guess, a general overview, and because I'm excited about that next part, for the most part, it is not a necessary part. Yeah. Because the things that happen don't really relate to the main mystery
for the most part
until like the last bit.
Yeah.
Like the last like 2 pages.
Yeah.
But it's
good.
Dude, it's so fucking good, dude. But I kid you not, in the next part, we're gassing up this next part.
I know. We're probably like the only 2 people in the world that like this book.
I don't care. I will die on this fucking hill. That next part, dude, literally fucking blew my mind. I was like, holy fucking shit. I love this book.
Yeah.
Image, you do not steer me wrong. You have yet to steer me wrong. That is all, dude. Like I am such an Image fanboy. Like the sloppy toppy I give Image comics is wild. But I like every comic I've read from them has been really fucking good.
I think you have a lot of Nicole to thank for that, because she has the taste of someone who is very well learned.
Well, I remember when me and Nicole were both reading Saga.
Yeah.
When it was first running out and everything.
Yeah.
And I think Saga, for me, Saga was my first Image comic.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was for Nicole or if she had read anything prior.
It wasn't, but I mean, she's read just so much.
But ever since Saga, dude, I've been like a Image fanboy, dude.
Well, I think that is going to wrap up this episode of Comics with Friends. This is part one
our
first part one of a 2-parter. So we will get part 2 uploaded next time.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, enjoy this story. Enjoy the laughs that we did. Pick up the book.
Dude,
like, we're not even done.
Read it.
Pick up the book. I don't know if you can still get the hardcovers. I know you can probably get the trades. Single issues, probably not. It's a little bit of an older story. It's 10 years old at this point. But pick up the book before part 2 comes out. So that way you can enjoy the fanboyisms that we give, because part 2 is even crazier than these first 5
like
issues.
I said, the first 5 parts is all like build up and like getting that tension. Part 6 a little bit, but after part 6, that's when we're like getting some payoff for this early shit going on. But I mean, even you're not going to get every payoff. I should warn ahead up, because this is only volume 1.
Yeah, there are more questions that get added on,
but there are some great
answers in this book too. So yeah, this has been Comics with Friends, the bi-weekly podcast where 2 best buds get together and read a comic they just really, really, really fucking love. I have been your host, Ethan, joined by my best bud and co-host, Mason, and we are signing out. Have a great rest of the day, week, month, whatever you want. And remember, keep reading comics. Bye-bye.
And don't chew your nails. Bye.